It's very shocking. Very shocking.
Port St. Lucie police responded to a call about a shooting in the Town Park community.
On the 13th of December, 2023, most of the respected online news outlets covering hip-hop culture came out with one news: Jackboy got shot. And not only that, they were saying that the shooting killed him. We was all up in arms. Even fans who didn't know him or gave a fuck about his music was wondering why again. But then the story flipped on everyone. Turns out Jackboy wasn't the one who got shot. Turns out it was his brother. And turns out Jackboy is completely fine. But this ain't some simple story that we can just glaze off like just another case of gun violence. There are layers to this shit. Like what really happened on that fateful morning of the shooting. How did the publications get it all wrong? Let's talk about how Jackboy's brother got shot on camera. The Jackboy shooting.
Port St. Lucie police continue to follow leads in a shooting that happened in Tradition this morning. Investigators say the suspect's vehicle was located in Broward County, and they have detained and are interviewing all of the people inside that car.
On that morning, in the quiet neighborhood of Port St. Lucie, Florida, a young adult male was in his driveway when an unidentified suspect approached him. Without warning, the assailant opened fire, shooting the victim multiple times. The news quickly spread, and rumors began to circulate that the victim was none other than the rising rap star, Jackboy. Social media platforms were ablaze with speculation and concern for the rapper's well-being. Fans and industry insiders alike anxiously awaited confirmation of Jackboy's condition. However, in a surprising turn of events, Jackboy himself took to Instagram Live to address the rumors. In the now viral video, Jackboy was everywhere, all smiles, revealing no signs of injury. With a smirk on his face, he proclaimed himself a real Haitian before launching into a spirited rendition of Young Dolph's 100 Shots. The lyrics of the song seem to taunt the unidentified gunman, questioning how they could have missed a whole 100 shots. That song has become the anthem for any rapper who gets shot at and survives. But it's also a song that lacks a certain level of self-awareness because you don't need to think too deeply about it to realize that the artist that sang the song eventually died from gun violence himself. And it didn't take 100 shots. That's a bad omen if you ask me. But we're moving away from the point. The question really was, what went down? What really happened? And why was Jackboy's brother a target in a shootout that was clearly intended to be for Jackboy? Wait a minute, you ask? How the hell do you know that Jackboy was the target if his brother was the one who took a bullet? Was the op blind or was he slow? Well, I feel you. And this is where we need to begin to dive into the weeds of it all, the details. Turns out that Jackboy lived in a gated community, and that his ops in question had to find their way into that gated community undetected. Then they hid behind a tree from as early as 7 a.m. waiting for hours and shot the first person that walked through the front door. Personally, I don't know who Jackboy's brother is, but if I was his OPP and I wanted to get a lick on him, I'm not breaking into no gated community and waiting from 7 p.m. to shoot his ass. It don't make no sense when I could easily catch him on the outside lacking. That kind of effort is often for the one who runs the house, not for the family. But hey, I might be wrong. However, if you ask me, I'm still 10 toes down on the issue. I feel it was Jackboy they was after, and Jackboy himself knew because his reaction to the whole situation was crazy to say the least. Him playing the Young Dolph song and taunting his ops and all shows that he knew they was after him. And this begs the next question I'm asking myself. Who was the op that came after Jackboy? Well, if we're gonna ask that, we gotta ignore his most obvious op and go down the list of individuals he's hurt very recently. And as crazy as it might sound, the most recent has to be his ex-girlfriend, Lex Stacy, who's also a rapper. Now, of course, I'm not saying Lex Stacy was the one breaching Jackboy's gated community and ambushing him with a stick. Of course not, but there is the possibility that someone who got pissed off by what Jackboy did to her decided to take action, the law into their own hands. Because if you did not know, back in September of 23, Lex Stacy would accuse Jackboy of domestic violence, saying he would beat the shit out of me, spit on me, made me sit in the shower butt-ass naked with a fan on in a 60-degree house. I know the standards are low for these folks, but that sounds like assault. Lex Stacy made the accusations over her Instagram stories, which revealed black eyes and bruises on the arms. The images and clippings also showed deep cuts on her legs, as she appeared to be inside a hospital with bandages on. There were also pictures of what seemed to be razor blades and broken broom on the floor, as well as a ransacked interior of a house. Turns out this had been going on for a while, and she'd just been trying to protect his image and her career as a rapper because she was signed under him. But she would post on her gram that never again, saying, "This who y'all support though. Y'all can take it how y'all want. I'm done being quiet. I got a story to tell." Lex Stacy also continued by saying how she was struggling for her life physically, emotionally, and psychologically, and did not wish what she was going through on anybody, especially since she began receiving threats from fans of Jackboy for coming out with the truth. Now, you might be wondering how Jackboy defended himself. What did he say about the whole situation, since there were receipts and little doubt that the whole shit was true? Well, Jackboy didn't deny shit. All he did was insist that his relationship with Lex Stacey was not like Krishan and Blueface. And you can trust Krishan. The woman appeared from the woodwork and went in on him like Will Smith yelling at Chris Rock at the Oscars saying, "Jackboy, shut your ugly ass up. What I got to with you beating your bitch up, if I was her, both of us would have black eyes, not just her." Eventually, Jackboy got that same ass arrested in St. Lucie County, Florida by the local police department on Saturday, September 16th. At the time, he was specifically booked on charges of burglary of an occupied dwelling unarmed and stalking of the cyber variety. He'd been stalking Lex Stacey and even trashed her house. Luckily for him, the rapper was only in jail for a few hours before they released him on a $5,000 surety bond. Now, this is just one theory, and to be frank, I don't really think it's true. I mean, it could be, but if it was, it's unlikely that Lex Stacey was the one that planned it. Whatever it is though, Jackboy's rogue gallery extends beyond the misses. He has had his fair share run-ins with 12 since early 2021 when he was taken into custody on charges of gun possession. Something similar had happened back in 2019 as well, but somehow he got free on both counts. It's even more crazy when you consider that he claimed that the police told him he's next, after they boasted about having got his then label head, Kodak Black or Yak, depending on how you want to call him. I know y'all know who the obvious suspect is. I know y'all want me to dive into his beef with Kodak Black. He's the one with the clout, the guts, and the guns to pull off a hit like that. Of course, it wouldn't be him doing it personally. It would be one of his homeboys. But still, let's explore it. Crazy thing is, him and Jackboy started off as brothers. Jackboy versus Kodak Black. Yak and Jackboy are legitimate day ones. And ever since Kodak Black shot himself into hip-hop mainstream with his debut mixtape Project Baby, all eyes have been on Yak, and Jackboy has been right behind him. So it ain't surprising that when Kodak formed the Sniper Gang, Jackboy was one of his first signees. And this brotherhood goes a lot further back to when they was just youngins in the hood. Kodak and Jackboy was always together. They was brothers from other mothers. Hell, if they looked alike a little more, you wouldn't be wrong to call them twins because of how tight they was. And as they grew older and their background started catching up with them, that loyalty only grew stronger. When Jackboy was just 14, he got 3 years in juvie. And the only two peeps who was standing by him and writing him on a weekly basis while he was there was Kodak and his mom.
Let me tell you what Kodak was doing when he was 14. This was writing me every week, y'all. At 14, juvenile program.
As you would expect, that event inspired a kind of Yayo 50 loyalty in Jackboy that the industry and fans love to see. Whatever the beef was, no matter who it was, as long as it was against his homeboy Kodak, Jackboy would not let it slide. Now y'all know the kind of unstable hothead Kodak is. Soon enough, Jackboy had a roster full of Kodak-sponsored beef. But he wasn't complaining. He was 10 toes down on all of them. Well, that was until Kodak began beefing with NBA YoungBoy. At this point, Kodak was behind bars. And I'm talking about the year 2020. Now, do y'all remember this incident where Mayweather's daughter, who also happened to be NBA YoungBoy's baby mama, got into it with some shawty called LaPatra Jacobs that she found in her baby daddy crib? If y'all remember correctly, Yaya stabbed her in April of 2020. And since it was over NBA YoungBoy, and since the rapper was already in over his head with 12, he managed the situation with the police in a way where things kind of worked out for all parties. By that I mean, Yaya didn't rot in jail, LaPatra is still kicking, and YB ain't dead or nothing. Well, the media reported it as YB cooperating with 12. And see, I don't know what the connection is, but when Yak saw that, he felt some type of way. He interpreted it as snitching and took it up with YB, standing in his neck and beefing publicly about it all. YB was furious.
Then look, say 10. Oh yeah, I'm at your top 2 ass nigga with your hating ass boy.
Now y'all mustn't forget that all of this was happening while Yak was behind bars, and since there couldn't be no action on his side cause of his situation, Jackboy took the beef personal. Jackboy dissed YB and the whole NBA squad.
Man, I see his homeboy telling him some fucking that bitch. We ain't worry about fucking no bitch, man. We trying for him, man.
But while all of this external warfare was on and about, there was a civil war cooking within the Sniper Gang. You see, from 2018 to 2021, Yak had been in and out of jail so much that their entire outfit was suffering. So it began to look like Jackboy was the more stable one out there. Like he was the one who ought to take over the organization while Kodak found his bearings. But when that decision began to look like the logical next move, Trump pardoned Kodak, which basically just flipped the entire state of things and just complicated the entire situation because now Kodak was out. And there was a lot of unfinished business, and Kodak wasn't hearing nothing. And while this should have been cause for celebration under normal circumstances, it wasn't, because Kodak began to accuse his own artists of being jealous of his fame and wealth.
Nigga try to throw me off the boat. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, off some envious shit.
Fans had no idea what to think. Was he talking about a specific artist? Who? Surely it couldn't be Jackboy, right? Well, from here on out, it was subliminals back and forth. They were beefing each other. That unbreakable bond we thought they shared was falling apart quicker than anyone could say Jackboy. Then it got a little more complicated when Kodak began saying that Jackboy owed him $1 million. And while he was saying all of that, Yak was throwing 100K stacks off boats and flushing dollar bills down the toilet, all in a bid to stunt on Jackboy. But Jackboy didn't say nothing at first. So Kodak doubled down. He talked about how Jackboy had promised to give him $1 million he was owed when Kodak got out of prison. But since Kodak got an early release because of the Trump pardon, Jackboy ghosted him. It was at this point that Kodak began crossing lines, because next thing we know, Jackboy's talking about how Yak was suing him. At this point, fans were split, with more falling to Jackboy's side as the situation escalated. But we still thought money was the only issue causing the division. Turns out it was more than that. Cause Yak would claim that he had actually attempted to sign NBA Youngboy, and it was Jackboy who instigated the beef, not him. What? Kodak Black would also say that Jackboy had been the one posting about NBA Youngboy on his socials because he had given Jackboy his password before he go thrown in the pen. It was at this moment that Jackboy snapped. The homie threw away the choke-in and went out on his boss. In a lengthy rant, he revealed all that had been happening behind the scenes allegedly. How Kodak had been capping with his beef with YB, the needless lawsuit he'd brought up. How Kodak had used his status to stop Jackboy from performing and Rolling Loud, and how Kodak was secretly friends with YB's brother. And he said all of this with proof. Unfortunately, and as these stories go, the root of the beef also had something to do with a shawty. Kodak would say that the reason why Jackboy was tripping was because of some girl he had that Jackboy wanted. Crazy thing is that same girl moved on from Kodak when he was in jail and started messing around with YB. Meanwhile, Jackboy would drop another bomb when he revealed that Yak had only signed him for $2,500 and it was to drop one album under the label, which for some reason turned into 5 albums. This made Jackboy feel like he was being finessed because he and Yak was close. But just when you thought it couldn't get wilder, proof surfaces that Kodak was capping about never having issues with YB until Jackboy came along, because there is proof of Yak calling YB from jail to diss him. But it gets crazier. Why? Because news would also break out that Yak had secretly been battling substance abuse. Like he'd been tweaking all along, which just made Jackboy's offer to take over the sniper gang more sensible. Word is he checked into a rehab facility in Florida, which just makes the entire idea of Yak putting out a hit on Jackboy plausible. Now, I know that his fans would come for me for this, so you gotta know that I'm just playing with possibilities here. But hey, let's forget about Yak and his tendencies for a second and focus on the bigger picture. These shootings need to stop, especially between rappers, because the richer they get, the less violent you expect them to be. But that hasn't been the case. And in gated communities like Jackboy's, it's only a matter of time before the residents begin to spaz out. What this could mean for the culture.
Good place for living. This is a quiet place. These are all the people are like friends in here. I don't know what happened. This is a second time now.
If you ain't the type of person that questions the media you consume, then you might want to listen up a little. But I ain't promising this part will be pretty. Because while we can go crazy on the beef between Yak and Jackboy, while we can marvel at the insanity of stunting on ops that almost sent you 6 feet under, while we can condemn violence on the streets, especially between rappers, we gotta get the record straight. America is very comfortable with the idea of the black man never becoming a grown-ass man. The industry is completely okay with these rappers staying and behaving like kids when they're well into their 20s and 30s. And what do kids do? They spaz. They don't take responsibility. They stay iced out, flash grills and fast cars, and get into petty beef that leads to needless loss of life and damage of property. Like I said before, this wasn't going to be a pretty section, and that's okay, because the truth ain't ever been pretty to nobody. But I want y'all to approach this with a clear mind, because it's not just Jackboy I'm talking about here. It's the whole section of this industry and what it promotes to the black people. And I'm not even talking about what it projects about black people yet. Y'all would agree with me that everyone is chasing the American dream. It might mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people depending on subculture. But at the end of the day, everything revolves around money. But can you tell me the difference between Jay-Z money and YB money? No, it's not the extra zeros. It's the maturity and the divested interests. You see, a rapper like YB who claims to never be broke again will eventually, when y'all get past his music, which is inevitable, will become broke. I ain't hating on the man. It's basic fact. And this ain't some shit I pulled out of my ass either. Rappers have been catching up to this shit since the jump. And even more recently, 21 Savage caught the memo in print.
I ain't really competing with nobody, so I don't gotta wear jewelry because jewelry don't make me.
The true rich, the truly wealthy individuals of this world aren't stunting with Lambos, bad bitches, and stacks for the gram. The truly rich own real estate, got money invested in the companies that manufacture the products they consume. The true rich know the difference between an asset and a vanity piece. And that ice you are rocking will devalue as inflation skyrockets. That Kara Walker piece you copped when she was an unknown underground artist will quadruple regardless of what the market says about the economy. America doesn't want black boys and girls to know how the money flows. They don't want y'all to level up. They don't want y'all to own the plantation. America wants y'all to remain hired hands, imagining because y'all got your hands on some stacks, y'all can run the parade. And you see, no one's saying y'all can't party. No one's saying y'all can't stunt on the ops because God knows Rick Ross, yeah, and hell, even Drake wilded out while staying financially sound. Even the world's richest man, Elon Musk, stunts every other Monday on Twitter. What I'm saying is, y'all gotta know who your heroes are and who your heroes ain't. Cause if y'all don't know the difference, you're gonna find yourself in your 40s, circling your hood, regretting your life choices, and advising the youngins on what not to do with their life. You're gonna become some reverse motivational speaker for the streets. Like I said, America don't want black boys and girls to grow up. And that's why when Jay-Z made the conscious decision to dress his age, ditching long jerseys and those atrocious baggy jean shorts for corporate three-piece suits, black folks were hollering that he was trying to look white. But who says a three-piece is white? And what makes a jersey and jean black? They're both white men designs. Go look it up. Truth is, the rules say a three-piece is mature. And while I'm not saying y'all should wear suit and ties everywhere like you is some child breadwinner born in 1920s depression, know that the rule of the game dictates that ownership falls in the hands of the mature, or at the very least those that can fake maturity. If y'all think I'm tripping, look at 50 Cent for another example. The homie went from snapback on durags and bulletproof vests to custom-made tailored suits that make him look like a boss. Yeah, went from the pink polo and backpack to Paris fashion level cuts on his person. Racism aside, if you look like any of these men even without the money on their best days and you walk into any establishment, peeps are gonna want to respect you. But if you're dressed like Jackboy jacking your ass in hood clothing into some fine-ass establishment expecting to be heard and respected, you're tripping. And any respect you get, you should be scared of because they are only being polite because they are using you for something. Remember, if you ain't paying your due and you still get elevated, then you're the product. But that's even on the exterior. On the interior, you gotta have the education to know how to keep the money. And to do that, you gotta watch your heroes. Jackboy, Kodak Black, YB, all these youngsters are clowns. And I don't mean this as an insult. Think of the roles everyone had to play in a king's court back in the medieval era. There were the knights, the advisors, the traders, the courtesans. And then there was the jesters, better known as clowns. Most of these entertainers fit in the profile of jesters. Their sole purpose is to keep the king and his people entertained. And sure, the king can throw bags of gold coins at him to lubricate his creativity, but the people don't look at him as the goal or the role model. The people look at all the other people in the king's court, or even still, the king himself. You see, back then, if you was born poor, the chances of you ever leveling up or growing into something better than your background was -0. Why? Because education was inaccessible and expensive. And by education, I mean the keys to understanding how the system works. These days, these things are so accessible that a jester can level up and overthrow the king if he knows the rules and plays his cards right. Unfortunately, because there is now more money than ever, and because our sense of values are skewed so much that people only see the money spent, they don't see the role being played. And also because people want the easiest path to that money, we now have clowns that refuse to level up and the people who want to be clowns. That is how you keep people enslaved in the modern era. Unfortunately, it's our melanated brothers and sisters that are the most affected. America doesn't want our black boys and girls to mature, so they position false idols, clowns, as the standard. If you are gunning to be Jackboy, you're not vying for the throne, you're running for the lowest position in the court. And at the end of the day, the victim is black culture and the future of our black kids.